So Texas is a pretty large state, right? We're the second largest, both in terms of land area, second only to Alaska, and second in population to California. And since 2006, no other state has been adding more people than the state of Texas. The state of Texas is growing both from migration, domestic migration and international migration, as well as natural increase, or what we call natural increase, but really it's births minus deaths. We've been adding, a large number of people, about 1,000 people a day to our population. And the non-white population has been playing a significant role in that population growth. Since 2010, over 86% of the total population that has been added has come from non-white populations. The Hispanic population alone has added more than 53% of that total population growth since 2010. And of the population that lives in Texas that is under 18 years of age, only 30% of that population is non-Hispanic white. So minorities in Texas have been contributing a lot of the population growth that we've been seeing throughout the decade. We have seen some dips in international migration since 2016 really is when we started to see some of those drops. And this last year, between 2018 and 2019, we saw the most significant drop in international migration growth to the state of Texas. So there are areas of the state where international migration really helps to boost and bolster their population growth. And these are the metropolitan areas that we know of throughout the country that are among the largest cities in the world, in the country. And they include the area of Houston, the areas of Dallas. Those areas, in fact, have more people moving out of Dallas County, out of Harris County, than moving into them. And in 2019, they actually experienced negative net migration in terms of population growth. So they experienced losses both from domestic migration as well as international migration. So that drop in international migration to the state is going to have severe impacts for places like Dallas and Houston. And even though the non-white population groups in the state are among the largest contributors of population, like I mentioned, Hispanics are adding more than 53% of that total population change. And Asian Americans and Asians in the state of Texas, even though they're the fourth smallest or fourth largest race ethnicity group in the state, they are adding similar numbers to the population as the non-Hispanic white population, which is still the largest race ethnic group in the state. So they are the fastest growing race ethnic group that we are seeing in our state. When we look at more recent migration into Texas, we can start to see some of that increased diversity coming from the state, or coming to the state, I should say. When we were looking at migration patterns and we were looking at areas of the world where migrants were coming from before 2000 and before, the majority were coming from Latin American countries and overwhelmingly from Mexico and from Central America. More recently, that shift has been towards Asian countries, and we have seen a shift from before 2000, about 19% of recent immigrants were coming from Asian countries. More recently, that's closer to 34%, and that compares to about 19% or less than 50% of recent immigrants coming from Latin American countries. So we're seeing that not only is the face of Texas as a whole changing, but the face of the Texas immigrant is changing as well. And when we start to look at different social characteristics of these population groups, we see that we have some real challenges when it comes to our communities of color. Our communities of color continue to have the highest unemployment rates. They continue to have the largest pay gaps when compared to non-Hispanic white male pay. They continue to have the highest poverty rates, highest levels of uninsurance. And so this presents a real challenge for the state of Texas. And when you start to have those sorts of challenges, social characteristic challenges, then sometimes that results in the loss of civic engagement among those communities. And right now, that representation is more important to the communities of color in the state of Texas than ever. Right now, we are seeing in terms of decennial response rates that are really critical and build the foundation for representation in our democracy. Those response rates are lower among some populations of color, in particular for Hispanics, but also for African Americans. And so